Lock in, folks. The college football season is right around the corner. Here's a look at some of the early Week 1 matchups. August 29th, Howard at Rutgers, North Carolina at Minnesota, Eastern Illinois at Illinois. I'll be on the call for that one, so mark your calendars. August 30th, Florida Atlantic at Michigan State and Western Michigan at Wisconsin. By the way, a new era is underway out in East Lansing, so let's hear from first-year head coach Jonathan Smith on training camp.
You know, I thought where we'd be. I thought we were a work in progress. I think each day you make some strides, and then you have a setback in a day or two when more install comes and maybe some more flaws you're trying to learn about, in individual players or schemes and sides of the ball. So, look, I feel good of where we're at and really the progress we're making. Because you're getting closer, there's things to get fixed. We talked about this week kind of, being a week of separation. And, I think the good teams are not going to just go through the motions and get through camp. We're constantly improving, and we got to push this. The middle of camp, like I say, bodies to our, even on the mental side, we got to keep pushing on it. And then let's face it, separation in regards to depth chart. Guys are trying to earn spots, earn playing time, earn getting on the bus for travel squad. So it's a huge week.
A lot of excitement building in East Lansing as head coach Jonathan Smith is ready to get underway in his first season with a program that's in a rebuild. It's hard to figure out, where do you start? A lot of changes, not just in the coaching staff, but in player turnover. 36 players going out, 24 coming in via the transfer portal. What is the most pressing issue this Michigan State team has to address?
Okay, so I look at the word pressing and I look at the word urgent. There's a quote by John Wooden talking about how he wants his teams to be urgent but never rushed. And I think that applies to Michigan State here, where because of all that newness, it's going to take some time. And I listen to Jonathan Smith talk and I say that guy is the right man for the job. He's going to get them back to their standard, but there's no need to be rushed. The most urgent matter at this point is, you go through spring and you have a ton of film and you have a ton of data. You go through summer conditioning, your strength coaches say, hey, here's the guys that are strong, here's the guys that are fast, here's the guys that are improving. You're now halfway through camp, you have more data. Well, with all this newness, it's on Coach Smith and the rest of his staff to go through that data and say, this is our identity of the team going forward. These past few years for Michigan State, they've lost their identity. He has now a ton of data that he can go and meet with his staff on and say, this gives us the best chance for us to win. And you're playing a game against Florida Atlantic, very, very winnable game for Michigan State. Go in that game and establish who you want the Spartans to be now in week 1 of the Jonathan Smith era.
One thing that can be a delicate balance for first-year head coaches is how much do you implement your system that you believe in. For example, Smith known to maybe have a similar style of offense to the San Francisco 49ers, for example. How much do you cater it to the players that you have available? And you may not have a roster that you entirely built the way you want it. Yeah. What's that balance have to be?
It's a good question, and it's completely dependent on your roster and the health of your team as well. When you're going through a drastic change, he will get to his system, but does he feel, Michigan State at times ran 10 personnel and 11 personnel last year. He's known to use multiple tight ends. I think that's the right identity for Michigan State, just understanding the type of recruits they're going to get there in the Midwest, bigger bodies. I was 1-3 against Michigan State in my career. They won with a physical run game and a physical defense. That's going to be, for Jonathan Smith, is it's going to take some time based on how quickly he can develop and recruit guys' body type to get to that type of system.
Well, Michigan State kicks off the season hosting Florida Atlantic. That game coming up on Friday, August 30th, right here on the Big Ten Network. Moving on to another team that maybe will finish middle of the pack. It'll be interesting to see exactly where they fall is Wisconsin, coming up in year 2 under head coach Luke Fickell. Finished 7-6 last season, lost to LSU in the ReliaQuest Bowl. The air raid offense, There's high expectations. What do you feel like is the most pressing issue that this Wisconsin team has to figure out?
Well, the first one was who's going to be named quarterback. And offensive coordinator Phil Longo said it is Van Dyke. As of yesterday, Van Dyke's going to be their quarterback this year, which was a bit expected. But you look at Wisconsin, that's going to be one of the better defenses in the conference and in the country once again. But you talk about the air raid system, and I go back to their offensive philosophy last year. brand new system. But everything, when I look at the film, everything happened within 10 to 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. They weren't able to stretch defenses and challenge them vertically. That condenses the field. You want a nice big open field in the air raid system. So Van Dyke and some of his bigger receivers, whether that's CJ Williams or Bryson Green, big, tall, strong guys, they got to get downfield. They got to stretch the defense. Then all of a sudden it's going to open up the run game and the underneath passing for Will Pauling.
Another big factor for Wisconsin this season has got to be their schedule. It looks like a gauntlet on paper.
Loaded.
They've got Alabama in September, Big Ten powerhouses in Penn State, Oregon, USC, Iowa. How big of a challenge is that going to be for this group to overcome as they try to figure out that offense and find a rhythm?
It's a huge challenge. This is the new era of the Big Ten. You know, this is where coaching is going to be at a premium because all of a sudden you have to factor in roster management and health and practice habits. So this is one of the more challenging schedules in college football. But, you know, Luke Fickell's a phenomenal coach. He's been to a playoff. He's put guys in the NFL. So he's the right guy for a job.
How about Wisconsin? Once again, they kick off the season hosting Western Michigan. Now moving along, though, to Minnesota. A bit of a step back last year for head coach P.J. Fleck's squad. 6-7 is how they finished. A little bit of a slide defensively, which had been their strong suit prior.
Yep.
What is the most urgent issue for this Minnesota team?
With P.J. Fleck, whenever he's a head coach, it's two things. They want to run the ball and they want to play defense. And they're going to be able to run the ball. They got a veteran offensive line, maybe the best tackle in college football in Ariante Ursary, a young, talented running back in Darius Taylor. They'll be able to run the ball. Okay, you're implementing a new quarterback. Okay, but they have got to play better defense. And Joe Rossi joined Jonathan Smith in Michigan State, so they went out and got a new defensive coordinator in Corey Heatherman from Rutgers. At times last year, you know, what made the Minnesota defense so great is they made no mistakes. There was no mental errors. And then in situational football, they rose to the occasion. It was the opposite last year. In the biggest moments, they were out of position. The Illinois game, I think, is a great example of that, just letting Illinois drive down the field and win the game. So you bring in a new coordinator. You're implementing a new language, a new system. They have to take these next 2 weeks and really get their fundamentals in situational football down to a T because you're playing a North Carolina team with talented offense. They got to be on their P's and Q's.
2 weeks is not a lot of time to figure all of the things out that you just touched on, but the Gophers get underway on Thursday, August 29th when they host UNC over on Fox.